Welcome to From X to Z, the show that believes you never age out of learning about the world around you. Featuring social media maven Danielle Farage and Mervyn Dinnen, the analyst who puts the X in expert. They're here to talk all things jobs, HR, and trends. So mind the generational gap. This is From X to Z, only on the Purple Acorn Network.
Hello and welcome to the From X to Z podcast. I am your host, Mervyn Dinnen. Once again, I'm riding solo on this episode as my co-host Danielle Farage is still traveling the world to spread the word for Gen Z. In this episode, I am sharing another of the interviews that I did at Unleash 2025. And today I'm sharing my conversation with Heidi Barnett, who's the president of talent acquisition at isolved. We talk about her transition from CEO of ApplicantPro to leading the talent acquisition function at isolved after a strategic rebrand and integration. With her background in marketing and years of experience in recruitment tech, she brings a fresh perspective on how AI, generational shifts, and candidate expectations are reshaping the hiring landscape. So sit back and listen to my conversation with Heidi. Hi, my name is Mervyn Dinnen, and I'm coming to you live from the expo floor at Unleash in Las Vegas. I'm on the booth of People Insight by Higher Road, and I'm delighted to now be talking to Heidi Barnett. I was going to say of ApplicantPro, but now of isolved. So that's my first question. Firstly, introduce yourself. And secondly, you know what my question will be, but we'll come to it in a minute.
Yes, thank you so much, Mervyn, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. Yes, introduce myself. I am Heidi Barnett. I think my official title right now is President of isolved Talent Acquisition for isolved. Prior to that we just had a rebrand and integration of our ApplicantPro business. Prior to this I was CEO of ApplicantPro. So my journey I've been in talent acquisition space for almost 15 years, started with an onboarding product, and then after that came on to the ATS side and worked with ApplicantPro. I was our 7th hire, came on in a content position, and really just grew, cut my teeth with the company, and grew into the role marketing to sales to chief revenue officer, and then eventually became CEO. So, and then led the transition over into the isolved group. Now, we're a little bit different on an acquisition because I think a lot of times when people think of acquisition is I approach your company and we have a conversation and I purchase you. And that's different than what we've done. We've been partners for over a decade, and isolved has had a strategic ownership piece in ApplicantPro. And so it made sense just recently to combine the companies and to bring ApplicantPro under full-time or fully integrated under the isolved umbrella. So our technology on the isolved side, when you're talking about talent acquisition or the ATS, has been our software, and now we've got the expanded services that were on the ApplicantPro side now fully integrated into isolved. So it's been a journey for sure, but I do love the talent acquisition space. My background's in marketing, and I think there's a lot of crossover in marketing principles to talent principles, especially when we're talking about recruiting talent. So I'm sure that will come through in our story and our conversation today.
I'm sure it will. It's interesting because obviously you've got a strong TA background, and way back when I started on my journey, when I started way back on my journey, I trained as an accountant, but that was a long time ago now. But I was, I suppose, what I would say in the UK, an agency recruiter. So I was a recruiter for different kind of recruitment agencies. And I was dealing with kind of a lot of HR and marketing people, which is how I then morphed into kind of an HR analyst. So it's interesting because I spent a lot of time in the same market. I suppose the first thing I would say is, given the way that so much is changing at the moment, that it probably makes great sense to merge your businesses. What was the real driver behind it for you?
Yeah, this is a really good question. from my perspective, we really started to see more of a consolidation in the market. We had customers who'd been with us for a long time who loved what we did, and we were providing services for them, who then were, left to go to a larger all-in-one system. And on the way out the door, they were like, we love what you guys do, but this decision was made outside of us. And so we started to see more of a consolidation where standalone ATSs were partnering up with, a payroll company or other consolidation within the market, and so it felt as though we were standing alone and on an island, and so it started to become more a business decision. But then also, how do you start to make talent more of a strategic initiative that aligns with business processes? And it made more sense to tie that onto the payroll side and bring it in more holistically into that full HCM, HRS experience. So I guess it would be both of those things.
And would you say the move was fairly seamless, or were there kind of one or two obstacles along the way?
Yeah, I wish I could say it was perfectly seamless, but it was because we had worked together for so long that it was very seamless in a lot of ways. I think brand is always a tricky part of merging and how you portray in the market, but as far as software, technology teams, marketing teams, things like that, we'd been working together for a long time, and so I think our customers are just seeing a more enhanced experience from a software perspective. But it has been a fairly smooth transition and one that's been really enjoyable.
Okay. And your background is also in marketing, so
yes.
You were obviously able to present it in the right way.
Yes. It has. It's been easy to talk about, and I think I had a lot of confidence knowing that we'd worked together. It wasn't that we had just been introduced and then had to go out into the media and say, look, we did this thing, but we'd worked together, and I had a deep relationship with the isolved executive team in particular, a lot of trust there, and seeing them do things like we just announced a few new AI features, and there's a lot of investment that's coming our way from a talent side, and so you see that them leaning into the talent initiative, which again makes it easier to talk about, and also to know that the things that we built are being taken care of on the other side.
Okay. It's probably, we're having this conversation at a time when talent is very much, I won't say under the microscope, but top of mind with a lot of the conversations I'm having around at this expo, in terms of a number of areas, in terms of AI, in terms of generations, future availability of talent, how we're going to get work done in the future. Will talent acquisition continue to exist in its current form, or will it be something else? So there's a lot. It's quite, I would say, an exciting time to be in TA. But I mean, if we discuss, I suppose, one or two of those. Firstly, how do you see the TA market at the moment? We'll look ahead soon, but I mean, at the moment, where do you think it is? Are we servicing people, supporting people in the right way? Is it still difficult for companies to attract the people they need?
Yeah. I think in a word I would describe it as tumultuous. I think that there are so many different factors. If you look at AI coming in disruptive, a lot of it is noisy, right? Around what should we be doing, what should we not be doing. We're seeing more candidate flow than ever before coming in, but it's more unqualified, right? We're not getting, like, people have an abundance of candidates, but they're not qualified. There's certain areas that struggle to get any candidate flow, right? They look at our like a lot of our restaurants, hospitality, they're still struggling to get any talent. And so I think that there is almost like a perfect storm of those things happening. I think that there's, in the U.S. market, we have a bunch of our government workers coming back to the private sector. So there's that. We have a bunch of our baby boomers who are retiring and closing their businesses. And so I think that there are a lot of different factors that are coming into play. Again, this is an exciting time for us, but also a lot of people, I think, practitioners in particular, are just like, I don't know what to do next. What's coming at me next? Another piece that I'm seeing is smaller teams. You know, we had impending recession or things that were sitting there with uncertainty around the economy, and so teams got smaller, and we never went back to it. And so they're smaller teams, and people are being asked or demanded to do more than they've ever done before. And so I think it's, again, the perfect storm. There's a lot happening. I think that what we'll start to see, though, is clarity, and with that clarity will come quite a bit of momentum, because there has been a lot of uncertainty. But that's where I feel like things are right now. When I talk to practitioners, they don't quite know what to do and are looking for help. And so that's the overall feeling. Is that what you're feeling? Is that what you're hearing?
I think so. It's interesting because I suppose I've got a perspective from UK, Europe.
Sure.
And you said just now about baby boomers retiring. But there's quite a lot of narrative at the moment around the fact that in a lot of cases they're not. So there was a piece recently, the Financial Times in Europe interviewed a number of people who are now almost 80 or in their 80s who are still working, not full time, but pretty much, 3/4 time. And it's kind of, why would we give up? We enjoy it too much. So you've got, quite a bit of my research recently has been around the different generations in the workplace, and this is very much felt with Gen X. There's been a bit about that the roles they would step up into are still there because people are working on beyond what we used to call the retirement age. And I mean, is that something, maybe, as I say, maybe that's a bit more Europe-based, but is that something you think could be happening here?
Yeah, I would say that it would be happening in particular industries. I think that what I'm seeing in certain circles is people are retiring or stepping away from their business to start something else or to begin again almost, and so there isn't a full exit. We also have on the younger side the entry, when you talk about generations coming in, and they're not entering the workforce like they used to. When I turned 16 or 15, I went and got my first job, and I worked in a restaurant, and I did the things I needed to do. And now we have more of our younger generation who are holding, and then they're doing gig work. Yeah. Right? And so they're not entering a traditional sense of into the job market. So it's interesting, again, on those, restaurants, hospitality, some of those are struggling because we just don't have talent entering. And so, it's interesting. You have both sides where, you've got those older generations maybe hanging on a little bit longer than was actually planned. There was that mass exodus we were all expecting to leave. Yeah. But anyways, we've got the younger side too, where they're not quite entering in the traditional sense that we had expected.
Yes, and well, sometimes it seems the job openings aren't quite the way they used to be, right. Training programs, apprenticeships and things. But also there's, I suppose, different distractions, and the work-life balance, shall we say, is slightly different. But we won't get into that at the moment.
Yes, that's a whole other conversation.
Yes. Looking, I suppose, at the TA market, talent acquisition market, because I suppose there's two things really I want to talk about. One is about AI, the advancement of AI, and the other is about almost not a squeeze, but it feels like the market's getting tighter, and I see a lot more, certainly on digital platforms, places like LinkedIn, the open to work banners. There seem to be more of them. People seem to have them on the banners on for longer, and so it feels that the market is in a strange place at the moment. How do you see it?
I am feeling the same thing, right? I heard the average is around 6 to 12 months, especially in the marketing world. People are staying on with their open to work banners on longer than they did before, and they're actively searching, right? And so I think that there is a level of frustration from a job seeker perspective, but companies, I think, are holding also. They're taking longer to hire, they're being more selective, there's more candidates coming in, and so it's making them to be, take longer to fill those roles. And so is that due to AI? That's the question. I don't know if we know for sure. You don't hear people saying, I'm choosing not to hire for this position because AI is taking this role. But we are seeing a lot of advancements in the TA space. and I'm sure in other areas as well. And so there's a lot of efficiency gains. And so, the CEO, I think it was Spotify who came out, or Shopify, I believe, came out and said, if you would like to hire, I need you to justify why AI can't do this, right, for you. And so I think that there will be some removal of jobs in that way, but the advancement, I hope, is making us smarter and more efficient to be able to add the human aspect in. And maybe this is me working in the HR space and HR technology spaces that I love and want it to be. The human connection is why people come to work. It's why they stay. It's why they have their job satisfaction. And so that, I believe, begins from the job ad forward. And so if we automate all those pieces, we'll lose that candidate experience and the connection early with the company, which will then keep them in the company longer, right? And keep them satisfied and onboarded and all those things. And so I think that I really like to see us using the AI from our perspective to automate things that maybe don't have as much impact on the human touch, so that we can then humanize HR still. I think I worry about the movement of AI removing a lot of those connection points that people have.
Putting the human into human resources.
Yes.
I understand that. I suppose one of the issues people fear a little bit with the AI is one of the positives is I think the candidate experience,
yes,
which I go back, as I said, I started life as an agency recruiter, and it has never been good.
Yes.
Despite how much money is spent on candidate experiences, I don't know how many organisations, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody listening to this, ever felt it was the most important thing. But that's one of the things AI can boost. There is, I suppose, another side to, is AI almost going to start making the decisions? So is AI's reading of somebody's background, somebody's skills, is it going to be accurate enough to rely on to make that decision? I mean, we started at this conference this morning with an opening keynote about some of the areas AI gets wrong. So that's been on my mind today. What do you feel the balance is? Does there still need to be some form of human oversight?
Yes, for now. I think there may be some pieces that we could potentially automate. We were talking about one of the features we have is a candidate matching feature, and it takes the different information that we receive from our applicants, and it basically sorts them and gives us a score, a candidate score. So it would match you to the job ad versus their resume, for example, and give you a score. And we have customers who love it, and it's perfect, and it's saving them so much time. There is a human element and oversight. They're not auto-disqualifying or anything that happens from a human side. But then there are companies who are like, this doesn't work for me at all, right? And so I think that there's definitely a need for human interaction and human touch as of now, and while we're training the AI. I think that, I don't know, this might be old school for me. I think that I like the humans making the decisions, right? I like AI recommending those decisions to me, and then the humans making those decisions, because then you have a chance to be able to really speak to it. But I had a conversation a little bit earlier about how your traditional recruiter will go away. It will all go through an AI agent, and maybe that will happen, but as of right now, I think that we're not there yet, and I think that AI can be biased itself, right? That's maybe one of the challenges they talked about this morning, is that the AI can have a bias towards something, especially if we're training it in that way. And so I think it maybe has a chance to be more neutral than a human, because we have emotions and that are living and breathing. But I do believe that advancements that have been made just in the past 6 months are mind-blowing in the talent acquisition space, and in other areas as well. But in talent acquisition, just the advancements that have been made. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in 6 months, another additional 6 months, and what that looks like. But what do you think? Do you think that traditional recruiters go away?
Well, firstly, I think, as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, AI with human oversight, not human with AI oversight.
Yes. Yeah, it's almost switched, right?
Yes, do I think recruiters will go away? I think that the role will probably change. There have been many times during my career in TA, recruitment, HR, where it's kind of, we don't need recruiters anymore. You go through periods of the economic cycle where, you go, not in recession, but I mean, it's kind of like people are laying off, they're not hiring. And so there's always been recruiters get laid off, and then suddenly there's a boom. We need people, we need to get recruiters in. So I think the role of a recruiter or a TA professional now is always subject to that a bit. And that's why it's so important that TA people bring the humanity, that it's the human side. But I think we will now have is greater insight into the real skills depth. The actual, the skills we can see, and almost the hidden skills that people have that you don't really see, you don't normally look for, to get maybe a more complete picture of the person and what the person's capabilities are. But again, if I think back to my days as a recruiter, some of the most successful placements were people that at the beginning you would not have put together. I remember sending people to clients and saying, I'm not sure I like this person, I'd like you to meet them, but I'm not really sure if it's what you're looking for. And they get on like a house on fire. And we used to send, this is exactly the person you're looking for. And 3 interviews later, no, just didn't gel with anybody.
Yes.
So that part of it, I don't know as yet, because AI is still in its relatively infancy, shall we say, how it will oversee that or how it will cope with that. And that's why I still feel there needs to be that human oversight.
Yes.
But I mean, for a business like isolved, which is obviously large and does a lot of things, what's your take, I suppose, on the future of TA professionals?
This is a great question. What's the future of TA professionals? I believe that there will still be a place for it, but if I can make them more efficient than ever before on doing the things that can be automated more quickly and surface to them for the key decision making, I feel like I've done my job, right? I want to make them more efficient to be able to do the things that they need to more rapidly and with more confidence, right? To be able to understand how the sausage is made, so that then they can speak to that from a business perspective. It's interesting when you say that this isn't the first time that recruiters have been in question of like, will this continue? It's definitely true. We've gone through swings of that of, we don't need them, and then we're desperate for them, and then we don't need them. And so, I think that from my perspective, if I can help them to be more efficient in their role and also to be able to surface with confidence for that key decision making on their side, we really have done their job.
Yeah.
And you talked about, sending the right person forward or sending someone forward who maybe doesn't match, but you have that instinct. We don't have that, at least now, from an AI perspective. Maybe we'll be able to manufacture our instinct through training of the agents or the AI. But as of right now, that intuition needs to stay with us in order for us to be able to make those decisions. So I don't think recruiters go away. I wonder if maybe some of the entry-level roles where they're doing a lot of that, I just screen candidates all day long, those will become more efficient, allowing our recruiters to do more with less.
Yes, a lot of entry-level. I suppose it comes back to something we touched on briefly earlier with kind of training, apprenticeships. I suppose one of the big questions is about that training, bringing people into the workforce, how people acquire skills and knowledge was when they leave education to come into the workplace. And I don't know if enough of the conversation is around that. Certainly some of the sessions I see at conferences like the one we're at here is not really talking about entry level, which again, the research I do around kind of Gen Z, Gen Z, and the next generation, Alpha Gen, is where are they going to get the skills and knowledge from? Where are they going to, how are they going to kind of be brought into the workplace? Will they need to be brought into the workplace?
Yes.
Will we have that world of pure leisure or something with the AI doing everything?
No, it's really true. And I actually sit on the College of Business board for a university in my home, and that's one of the things they're talking about is that students don't read anymore. And so how is education addressing their need to learn without, providing a textbook for them? And so I saw a full textbook that was all video run. And it was, they weren't reading it obviously, but they were presenting the information in 5-minute or less clips so that they could give the information to this upcoming generation in a way that they consume information, right? Almost like YouTube Shorts for, a marketing class or something similar. And so I think that's definitely, I think it needs to be done, because one of the things that I'm worried about with the infusion of AI is that it's bypassing our thinking, our logic around this is what I believe, and this is why I believe it, because I've been through point A, B, C, D, which led me to this conclusion. When we jump through to go directly to the decision, we lose that thinking, which then can harm our overall intuition or those types of things where we've done this before, I have this experience. And so that's one of the things that I worry about from my perspective. But I think that we do need to, and there's a lot of professors and teachers that are trying to create and manufacture experiences that will force their thinking, which then they can plug into, and rather than shunning and saying, you may not use AI, they're saying, I need you to craft this, which would lead to this, which will then create this outcome. And we want your presentation done via AI, right? Yeah. So they're embracing it. But how do you manufacture the thinking or the experience that will allow for them to think it? So I think that they're going to struggle coming into a traditional workforce, but does the workplace change enough to adapt to them? That's what I think. There's a lot of, the younger generation is lazy. They don't work, which actually isn't true. They work different than we do. And I would say we work differently than our grandparents, and so there's a lot to think about and unpack here, but those are some of my thoughts around that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point you make. I do, as listeners to this interview might know, I do take part in a weekly podcast where I talk about the world of work with a Gen Z, Gen Z world of work influencer. And there are so many misunderstandings, I think, generally in the workplace about kind of Gen Z and what they really want, what their motivations are, and understanding, not understanding, I suppose, the kind of time they were brought up in, what their the overarching factors, kind of, recessions and things. So I think there's this intergenerational thing at work probably won't change. I think actually when you were talking there, it made me think back to my early days in a professional services firm. I think I said earlier I trained as an accountant, and I might get a call from a manager or a partner even, who might say, "Look, I've got a call with isolved. They want to talk to me. Do you know what it's about? Can you bring up the isolved files and let's see." And kind of, I'd be going through them and say, well, it might be this, it might be that. And that's the kind of thing that kind of, I was just thinking to myself, that's not needed anymore. Yeah. Because it just says they'll just say to their agent, isolved want to talk to me. What's happening on the isolved account?
Tell me the possibilities based on what we know about this experience. Yes, it wouldn't be needed anymore. And in some ways, rather than saying that's lazy, we can say that's intelligent, right? And that's efficient, and that's important. And then apply the overall logic, reason, experience that we were talking about. That's the best combination in my eyes.
And of course, that replaces me going through the files and making notes and
correct.
So what happens to that bit?
Yes. What happens there? I mean, if it's unnecessary, do you then reallocate, resources? And that's the other thing, is that companies will be able to I don't know, our teams, when we talk about it, we don't want these roles to go away, so we don't need them. How do we reallocate to make it better for us to continue to progress and grow? And some of it is reallocation into, an AI-centered group within our organization who really is focused. We have cross-departmental and cross-functional teams that are working on that external of the company. How do we provide these services to our customers? But then also, how do we become more efficient as a company inside to be able to help us to then service the clients better? So there's two things that are happening where we have AI focused within the business. So.
Okay. Final question.
Yes.
If we sit down in 5 years' time and have this conversation again, what do you think will be different?
Well, I think, first of all, I'll probably say we were all wrong, right? Because we're going off of this much information and looking ahead. Wow, how would it be different? I wish I had a crystal ball. But I think that our work experience won't live in a resume. I think the way we post jobs will look drastically different. I don't think it will be this post and pray. I think we'll be able to access, information almost immediately on you and your experience and how it would fit in the company. We would have, more of a complete profile, right? Rather than me, looking at, a few pieces of data and information. I think that we'll probably still be talking about AI. I think it will just be the next evolution and generation of what that looks like. I think our workforce will look drastically different in how we work, right? The future of work is still yet to be defined, so I think that would look wildly different. I don't know. What do you think it would look like in 5 years when we're having this conversation?
Well, the AI will be talking about us. No.
Yeah,
us
also
about
true.
The AI. Well, I don't know. I suppose the first thing I thought when I asked the question was, will we be sitting here in an expo hall? Or will we be speaking virtually, watching sessions virtually and virtually meeting all of the vendors that are here now?
Yeah.
Looking at the ones, finding all about them, with AI, chatbot, whatever, walking us through what it does and stuff. So it's...
Just a thought, do we have more of a need to connect? So we have more of this need here. I think about COVID, where we were all on Zoom, we were all at home, we were all walking through everything virtually. And then when the world opened back up, we had this pent-up demand to be in movie theaters and to be at restaurants and to be gathering as families. Do you have that push where the human connection is more needed than ever before? Or are we all virtual and just happy living there and doing the things, So I can see it going both ways.
Yes, oh dear. Now there's a thought.
Yeah.
But it's been great talking to you.
You as well. Thank you so much.
No, it's a pleasure. And lots of luck with isolved as it grows and moves forward.
Thank you. I'm excited about what we have planned in our roadmap and how our companies can work together. So thank you so much, Mervyn, for having me.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation. There was certainly a lot to learn. Now, don't forget to connect with us, to follow the show at purpleacorn.io. You can connect with myself and Daniel Farage through whatever platform you like. And join us next week, where we'll bring you some more insights from X to Z.